Hello and welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to update and upgrade our Edgar Markov EDH deck. Thank you for choosing MTG Burgeoning for your Magic the Gathering content. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and consider becoming a subscriber. Doing so supports the channel and makes you eligible for our various subscriber rewards series. If you would like to support the channel further, then click the link to our Patreon page in the description below. There you can join our ongoing Pack Wars series as a 1-month supporter or ongoing member. Or try joining Pack Wars for free by commenting on every MTG Burgeoning video in a month. We strive to offer creative rewards through our various Patreon tiers. So if Pack Wars isn't for you, then something else will be. Links to our content and various subscriber rewards series can be found in the description below. Send us an email, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We are your channel for all things magic. Greetings and salutations to the MTGBC. You are the MTG Burgeoning community. Welcome back to another installment of the Up and Up series. Today we're updating and upgrading Edgar Markov. We've got some vampires going in, we've got some vampires coming out, and we have some upgrading to the mana base. Let's talk about the first vampire going in. And that is the Dominating Vampire, a 3/3 for 1 and 2 red. When she ETBs, we gain control of target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of vampires we control until end of turn. We get to untap that creature and it gains haste, so we can grab this creature, send it into combat right at the opponent we took it from or to one of our other opponents. The fact that we get to attack with it is fantastic, and we have ways in which to make sure that our opponent never gets that creature back with some of our sacrifice features and effects in this deck. Dominating Vampire will take a spot away from Gatekeeper of Malakir. We got a 2/2 for 2 black mana with a kicker of a black mana, and when the Gatekeeper here ETBs, if it was kicked, target player sacrifices a creature. This at times can be hit or miss. This against a Voltron commander is very, very strong. Voltron commanders, depending on your metagame, those are the ones that they just soup up with auras and equipment and make it very, very difficult with which to interact. The thought process here is for the exact same amount of mana, the 1 and 2 red versus the 3 black, we get to pick a creature, gain control of it for a turn, do some funky things with it, and then perhaps end up sacrificing or exiling it so our opponent doesn't get it back. For the 3 black mana that we need for Gatekeeper to kick, our opponent gets to pick one of the creatures to sacrifice, and let's face it, if there's more than one, it's never the one that we want them to sacrifice. So we're planning on being able to interact more with the creatures that our opponents control, and with that in mind, the Dominating Vampire is a better fit than Gatekeeper of Malakir. All right, Vampire number 2 going in. It is Markov Purifier, a 2/3 lifelinker for 1 in Orzhov colors. At the beginning of our end step, if we gained life this turn, we may pay 2, and if we do, we draw a card. Nice that the Markov Purifier has lifelink, but we have many other ways to gain life in this deck outside of this 2/3 Vampire Cleric. So with the end result being paying 2 mana, of any color, of course, to draw that card, that helps us to make sure that we get gas in our hands and maintain tempo in a deck, in a build, in a constructed way that we want to keep sending those vampires to our side of the battlefield, triggering Edgar's Eminence, and just building our army bigger and bigger. Markov Purifier and its mana value of 3 is going to take the place of Read the Bones, also a mana value of 3. This is a sorcery that lets us scry 2, and then we draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. The thought process here is that Read the Bones investment of 3 mana and 2 life will put 2 cards in our hand, where Markov Purifier and its investment of 3 mana can gain us some life and potentially put more than 2 cards into our hand due to its ability to let us pay 2 mana to draw a card at the beginning of our end step if we gained life. So the prevailing thought is that we'll get more use out of Markov Purifier in the long game than we will with Read the Bones' one-time draw 2 card ability. Vampire number 3 going in, and what a flavorful addition it's going to be. It is Olivia, Crimson Bride, a 3/4 flying with haste for 4 in Rakdos colors. Whenever Olivia attacks, we return target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when we don't control a legendary vampire, we exile that creature. Because we are a combat-driven deck and we are a vampire-focused build, it comes to think that we're going to have many of our vampires fall in combat. Olivia will allow us to get them back from our graveyard into play, sending them back into combat, and as long as we have a legendary creature, which we do here in our hand, our general, of course, is a legendary, and there are some other legendary vampires in the build. As long as we've got a legendary vampire, we're going to make sure that those creatures we recruit from the graveyard stay on the battlefield. Plus, with Olivia coming in with haste, we can come out of nowhere and really do some flying and tricky damage to our opponents. Olivia Crimson Bride is going to take the place of Vampire Nighthawk. This one was a tough choice to make, and the reason for it is because of Olivia's ability. It has the flying, it has the 3 damage that it can do for flying. Vampire Nighthawk is a 2/3, but Olivia's recursive ability just makes her the better play, particularly when we already have Nighthawk Scavenger in the 99, which is a better and stronger version of Vampire Nighthawk. It does everything that Vampire Nighthawk does, except its power can get that much bigger. So we get rid of version 2.0 of a card. I'm sorry, not version 2.0. We get rid of a weaker card that's being mimicked by a more powerful one, and in its place, Olivia goes. So we slightly weaken our 3-drops, but putting in Olivia at the 6th spot is just too good to pass up. All right, Vampire number 4 going into the build. It is Welcoming Vampire, a 2/3 flyer for 2 and a white mana. Whenever one or more other creatures with power 2 or less ETB under our control, we draw a card, and this ability triggers only once per turn. So we cast Welcoming Vampire, we get her onto the battlefield, and then each subsequent time that we cast one of our vampires, we've got Edgar in the command zone with its Eminence. It's going to create that 1/1 token, and please note, it doesn't say non-token, it just says other creature. So we will be able to draw a card each time we cast a creature with Edgar's Eminence ability coming into play. Now, granted, we can only draw 1 card per turn, but Welcoming Vampire, with addition to its evasion of flying in a 2/3 body, it's going to provide us card draw in the long run as long as we can keep her protected. Now, this repeated ability to draw cards is going to help power out more vampires and allow us to have a bigger control grip on the game. Welcoming Vampire is going to take the place of Painful Truths. This is a sorcery with a mana value of 3. It's 2 and a black instead of 2 and a white. It has the Converge mechanic, which lets us draw X cards and lose X life for X the number of color mana spent to cast Painful Truths. So at its ceiling, we jam a white, red, and black into the mana cost of the spell. We'll draw 3 cards, lose 3 life, and then that's going to be it. Now, with Welcoming Vampire, the thought process is that it will allow us to draw more cards over time than Painful Truth's one-time casting, putting 3 cards into our hand. Welcoming Vampire, of course, with the number of vampires that we'll have in our hand, as long as we keep her alive on the battlefield, we will be able to draw a card during each of our turns. All right, the vampires are out, and before we upgrade our mana base, we got 1 removal spell that we're going to add, and that is Olivia's Wrath. It is a sorcery for 4 and a black. Each non-vampire creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of vampires we control. So this is a vampire-specific removal spell, and please note, each non-vampire creature will be affected. Every creature in this deck and the tokens made by Edgar are all vampires. So this is going to be a one-sided removal spell, and hopefully it will be much more to our advantage than the card that it is being replaced, and that is Dam. Dam is 2 black mana to destroy target creature that can't be regenerated, or we overload it by paying 2 and 2 white mana to cast a Wrath of God or to cast a Damnation. You can pick which one. The thought process here is that by casting Dam for its overload cost, we lose all of our creatures too. For just 1 more mana at 4 and a black versus 2 and 2 white, we get to get rid of most, if not all, of the creatures on the battlefield that aren't vampires, and all of our vampires stay. That one-sided board wipe is why Dam is out and Olivia's Wrath is in. All right, so some promises to the improving of our mana base. All right, so a land going in, we are going to put in, not just because of its flavor, but because of its playability, we are going to put in Count Castle Dracula. It's going to tap for a colorless. It's going to tap to pay 1 life to add 1 mana of any color that we can only use to cast vampire spells. So this mana confluence-like ability is going to be very, very helpful because, let's face it, this deck is mostly vampires, but we don't have to always use the pay 1 life effect because we can always just turn it sideways for a colorless mana. And lastly, if for some reason we choose to do this, we can tap 5 and tap this to create a blood token, but this ability costs 1 less to activate for each vampire we control. So for all intents and purposes, we should be able to just turn this sideways to create a blood token. That will allow us to, tap 1, sacrifice it, discard a card, and draw a card. Maybe we're flooded with lands and we want some more vampires in our hand. Either way, Castle Dracula's versatility is going to be much appreciated in this deck, and the mana base welcomes it with arms wide open. Castle Dracula is going to replace Battlefield Forge. It was our Boros Pain land. It taps for a colorless, just like Castle Dracula. It taps for a red and a white, which deals 1 damage to us. So why not just replace that ability by paying 1 life to get any of the 3 colors we need, in addition to have the ability to create that blood token. Castle Dracula does more for the deck than Battlefield Forge. Next land going in, it is Reflecting Pool. For all intents and purposes, if the stars align correctly, this should be Command Tower number 2. Coming out to make room for Reflecting Pool will be a basic swamp. We have more basic swamps than any other basic land in this deck because the deck's mana base is tilted toward black. So by replacing a land that taps for just black mana with Reflecting Pool, we help to upgrade the versatility of our mana base while not sacrificing the black mana tilting of the entire deck. The black mana necessity of casting the majority of our spells. And the last addition here, we're going to throw a Mana Crypt in. It's one of the best artifacts in the format. It costs 0 to cast, turns sideways for 2, helps us to power out our higher casting cost vampires and other spells, including our general. And as long as we don't flip the wrong side of the coin too many times, we won't lightning bolt ourselves to death. And taking the place of our Mana Crypt is going to take the place of another basic swamp. So we're going to excise 2 basic swamps to accommodate a Reflecting Pool and a Mana Crypt. That should not hurt us in the short, mid, or long run. If anything, that's going to help us to balance our colors, and it's going to increase tempo by allowing us to cast things ahead of curve and hopefully continue to outvalue and out-resource our opponents. And there you have it, MTG BC, up and up installment. We got Edgar Markov here. Let me know your thoughts about these changes in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic.